In this class, we can study about nationalization of banks in India. What is nationalization of banks? The process of transferring ownership and operational rights of a bank from private or trust to the government of the country. That one is the nationalization of banks. In India, 14 leading banks were nationalized on July 18th, 1969. Each one's deposit were more than rupees 50 crore. Okay, their share in total deposit and advances were almost 2/3 of all scheduled bank in nation. Then nationalized banks were forced to follow directions and guidelines issued by the government. At that time, there were more than 645 banks having more than 4,800 branches. They were serving only urban areas, big industrial house at the cost of rural areas and small industries. Then in that time, Indira Gandhi was the PM. 6 more banks were nationalized in 1980. Then in 1980, 6 more banks were nationalized. National Credit Control Council was implementing body. Then in 1993, 2 banks were nationalized and number of nationalized banks are the objectives of nationalization. To reduce concentration of economic powers with only a few industrial magnates and to prevent monopolies. Then mobilize resource even from backward and rural areas. Then first important objective was to reduce concentration of economic power. Second one, mobilize resource even from backward and rural areas. We know backward and rural areas there is lack of resources. Okay, then like these facilities, banking like these facilities need to provide. Then to prevent lopsided regional development, to prevent corruption and misuse of firms, and the trustees were only benefiting the huge resources. Then another objective, to provide aid to the poor. Then especially for small scale industries, and 40% of industrial output received only 4% bank funds. Then another aim was to get fund for small scale industries to fulfill credit needs of farmers. 2.2% of funds were available for agriculture. Then to finance government development projects, especially 5-year plans, to prevent giving loans to those firms were not existing in the priority list, to prevent advance to black marketers and hoarders. That was the main objectives. Number of branches increased from 8,262 in 1969. Then it became 6,514 in 2003. Population per bank has reduced 55,000 in 1969 to 16,000 in 2003. 20% of rural areas were covered in 1969 by banks, increased to 15% in 2003. What are the roles of commercial banks? We know commercial banks have important role in economic development. Accelerating the rate of capital formation, they encourage the habit of savings among the people and mobilize ideal resource for production purpose. Okay. The process of economic development needs development of capital resources, structural changes like skill, efficiency, power, better organization, better health. Capital formation is the most significant variable of economic development. Then we know mobilization of savings. The commercial banks are important agencies for generation of savings of the commodity. savings of the community. Such savings may be made by individuals or business houses or public authority. By inspiring people, bank make them willing to keep their savings with them, okay, or surplus with them. By offering a number of incentives like interest, deposit and free or cheap remittance of funds, safe custody, like that, lot of offerings are providing for stimulating savings, okay. Banks have a network of branches far and wide. They accept funds on current savings and fixed accounts, okay. Thus, this bank can mobilize savings. Then creation of credit. Another function is, another important role is creation of credit or provision of finance and credit, okay. Banks are instrument for developing internal as well as external trade. Banks are the heart of financial structure. They add to money supply. In a modern society, money supply does not consist only metallic coins and paper note, but also bank deposit. Bank credit has an important bearing on the level of economic activity in underdeveloped countries. Credit expansion provides more funds to entrepreneurs, which lead to more investment and production. The expansion of bank credit offers more financial resources to industries to contribute for greater economic development. Another important function is monetization of economy. Then banks are opening branches in rural areas. It can promote the process of monetization in the economy. We know rural areas, these people are not getting proper loan or credit facility, especially in agriculture sector. We know rural areas people are not getting proper funds, okay. Through banks we can provide more branches, and through that one we can promote the process of monetization. Then like that, we know banks are creators. We know the flow of credit is very much important. That one we know, just as its circulation. We know every area banks transfer fund from different regions where it is available plenty to where it can be efficiently utilized, okay. Then another important role of commercial banks are implementation of monetary policy, encouragement to right type of industries, regional development, promote industrial development, fulfillment of socio-economic objectives, okay. These are the another important role of commercial banks. And we know these commercial banks have lot of important roles like development of foreign trade, then transfer of money, then support to more production, development of transport. Banks are financed for the transport sector. Then these things we already innovation means essential for economic development. These innovations are financed by bank through credit facilities, okay. Then we studied about nationalization of commercial banks in first round in 1969, covering 14 banks, followed by another in 1980 covering 6 banks, okay. This was the nationalization. Private commercial banks were not fulfilling social and economic development. That reason we started nationalization. That one we already studied. List of nationalized banks in 1969: Central Bank of India, Bank of Maharashtra, Dena Bank, Punjab National Bank, Syndicate Bank, Canara Bank, Indian Bank, Indian Overseas Bank, Bank of Baroda, Union Bank, Allahabad Bank, United Bank of India, UCO Bank and Bank of India. These are the nationalized. Then we studied structure of commercial banks. Indian banks are there, foreign banks are there, public sector banks are there, private sector banks are there. Then another functions are financing trade. The commercial banks help in financing both internal and external trade. The bank provides loans to retailers and wholesalers to stock goods in which they deal. This one also financing trade also another important function or role. Financing agriculture, that one also another important role of a commercial banks. Commercial banks help agriculture sector in developing number of ways. They provide loans to agricultural commodities. They open a network branches in rural areas to provide agricultural credit. Okay, they also provide financial assistance for animal husbandry, dairy farming, sheep breeding, poultry farming. For all these things, these commercial banks are providing financial help. Okay, then financing consumer activities, then financing employment generating activities. Then important roles are financing industry, mobilizing savings and capital formation. These are the important roles. Financing industry, financing trade, financing agriculture, financing consumer activities, then financing employment generating activities. Especially in developing countries, they provide loans for the education of especially for engineering students or professional courses. They are providing loans. They advance loans to young entrepreneurs and medical and engineering graduate. Okay, then this one creating employment opportunity. Thus the bank not only helps human capital formation but also increasing entrepreneurial activities in developing countries. Next one, helping monetary policy. The commercial banks help economic development of a country by faithfully following the monetary policy of central bank. In fact, the central bank depends upon the commercial banks for the success of its policy of monetary management in keeping the requirements of developing economy. Thus, the commercial banks contribute growth of a developing economy by granting loans to agriculture, trade and industries.